Welcome back to U.S. Farm Report. Before we dive back into our discussion, we had a student visiting yesterday, Tegan Engel, and apparently her grandpa is an avid watcher of U.S. Farm Report. They'll be watching this weekend, so Dr. Spain asked for us to give you a shout out. Ben, when we look at inflation right now and the concerns about a recession, which commodity today do you think has the biggest risk?
Yeah, corn. I would give that signal to corn. A couple of reasons for that. One, the Federal Reserve is increasing interest rates to help control inflation, but their goal is to increase the dollar to some extent and slow down demand. And so that's part of the underlying goal, and we certainly see that impacting corn at the moment. Ethanol is also a big concern. We get these RVO or renewable volume obligation targets here at the end of November. Those will be playing throughout the next year. So if we have a recession that hits next year and slows down gasoline consumption, that hits our ethanol market like what we saw during COVID as well.
Well, Pat, we saw the Fed raise interest rates. It wasn't a surprise. It was expected that we were going to see another bump. But do you think that the Fed will be forced to make even more interest rate hikes?
Yeah, some of the statements this week by the chairman of the Federal Reserve suggest we're not done yet raising interest rates. And that hit the market pretty hard when that news came out. So again, that's one to watch ahead of us here. Higher interest rates, of course, are a big deal for farmers and their production expenses, and of course can even affect things like land values.
Well, and it's hard to make some of those decisions right now when you look at interest rates and some of those big investments. Yet this week we saw USDA make another announcement about expanding meat processing here in the U.S. When you look at some of those announcements, yet we have the drought, we have the reduction of cattle supplies. Is it possible that we could soon have too much processing capacity? And at what point do you think that happens, Scott?
Yeah, so I think for sure we could get in a situation, when you look at 2023, it looks like we'll be down 5-6% in terms of U.S. beef production already. And so when you think about some of the expansion going on, we in terms of processing expansion, we may be in a situation relatively quickly where we don't need that shackle space. Now, I will say to the investment being made, it's how do we, in my mind, think about investment in value-added beef products. Some of those local opportunities, I think, help cattle producers. But to the point of, it's dry. We've been slaughtering beef cows. We've been putting heifers in feed yards at a high historical rate. So we know both short and long run here. So you've got to probably get to 2025 or 2026 before we start talking about any potential increase in terms of cattle slaughter today time.
And the eastern part of the country had been pretty safe when it comes to drought, but that is not, we are seeing that creep farther east. But when you look at farmland values, it doesn't seem like any of these concerns, Ben, are tapering some of these values. Had like I think a $26,000 per acre land value sale earlier this week that was confirmed. Interest rates, if we see those continue to creep higher, do you think that does put the brakes on these farmland values?
I've been impressed with, let me put it this way, I have been amazed maybe at how high mortgage rates for land have gone recently, and that hasn't seemed to have any impact on land sales in terms of value and also volume of sales coming to the market in some cases. So you've got that, you've also got the drought concern, and we continue to see these record high land prices. At some point we'd expect that to tamper, slow down, maybe even decrease a little bit with higher interest rates or mortgage rates, but we certainly haven't seen it yet.
There's net farm income projections this year. I know a lot of it does depend on moisture, Pat, but how do you think? Do you think this is going to be a pretty solid year for some producers that will only fuel some of those farmland purchases?
Yeah, I think 2022 is a very mixed bag for lots of producers around the country, right? You got some folks who had a very good year because they got high prices for their commodities. Maybe they booked some of their inputs when things were not quite so high. On the other hand, people on the other side of that ledger, of course, as well. As we look ahead, I think there's a better chance that output prices drop before input prices drop. So we could see some challenges in front of us in 2023 and 2024.
2023, 2024 crop year. How concerned are you about the input side of it and the cost side of it compared to the commodity prices that farmers could see?
Absolutely. I think we're more likely to see that cost price squeeze getting worse as we look ahead. You look at any period of history where we've had these run-ups in terms of farm income, and it's always been a situation where the receipt side has fallen faster than the cost side. It's hard to get that cost side to work down, and we're really doing nothing with the input side except keeping those input costs fairly high. So I will say I think there's a lot more worry about that squeeze going forward.
Well, Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. I keep catching a glimpse of the bus back here, powered by biodiesel, sponsored by Missouri Soybean Association, that's going to be taking the team this weekend to the hotel and to the field. How cool is that? I mean, I haven't seen this at any other university. That is awesome. Well, thank you guys for joining us. We need to take a quick break, and then we'll be back with more U.S. Farm Report in just a moment.